Okay, so we are going to discuss two topics today. So the first topic we'll be discussing about the Python introduction, and the second topic is the data types in Python. See, first of all, since this is a webinar session, so we cannot cover everything, but I'll try to cover most of the topics mentioned into the webinar syllabus. Okay, so today we are going to become why we need to learn Python, Python fundamentals and data types in Python. So these all are the two topics. Number one, why Python? Then the second topic, we have the Python fundamentals. We will discuss the different components in Python, and the third topic that we will cover is the Python data types. Okay, fine. Okay, so let's start with the why Python, and then we will be coming to the Python fundamentals. Okay. Okay, so first let's start with the why Python. So see, there are a number of languages available into the market. So the very first question everyone asks, like let's say if someone is coming from non-programming background, so learning programming language, any programming language is an uphill task, right? So first, the very first question is why we exactly need Python, okay, or why we need a programming language in the field of data science or in the field of data analytics, right? So see, if you are going to apply into the field of the data scientist in any company or in any organization, so like there are multiple profiles, right? So there are profiles of the data analyst. Okay, this is a kind of entry level job in the market. Then we have the profile of the business analyst. Okay, then we have the profile of the then we have the data science consultant. Then we have the manager. Then we have the senior manager, right? And then we have the chief and directors and all. Okay, so basically in CXO position and all, right? So these all are the different profiles we are having, and there are different levels. So in different organizations this structure may be different, but this is the basic idea, right? So you can say data analyst is the entry level job, business analyst is the entry level job, data science consultant. So as of now, you probably based on your experience, you would be able to apply on any of these roles. And as you work, so you will be getting some experience, and based on that, you'll be promoted to the higher positions, right? But whatever role you are going into, so let's say if you're applying as a data analyst or the business analyst or the data science consultant or the manager, in any role, so the very the technology that is mandatory is programming. At least one programming language you should know, and that to which programming language. If you are knowing Java, if you are knowing C, probably it is a good thing for you because you can learn Python easily. But if you're coming from non-programming background, then you should know at least one programming language, and I would say you should select Python. There are a number of reasons why I would say that you should select Python, but one of the most important reason why you should select Python is that Python is easy. Okay, it is easy, simple, easy to learn and understand, right? And expressive language. Right? So whichever profile you are going into, as I said, whether you are applying as a manager based on your experience or the data science consultant or business analyst or the data analyst, so you can easily, so the very first requirement they will be looking into this, looking into your profile is whether you are coming from programming background or not. If not, then whether you know Python programming or not. Why? Because first of all, if you are going to do the data analysis, right? So you are going to load the data, you are going to pre-process the data, you are going to filter the data, and for that you need to have some basic understanding of the Python programming. And if you are having that basic understanding, you will be able to survive into the industry, because no one is expecting you to become the master in any programming language or to become the master of the Python programming. Okay, they just want you to have some basic understanding of it. Rest all, if you have the basic understanding of the programming, rest all you will be able to survive, and you will be learning, right? You will be learning further. So if in case if you feel that, okay, so if you want to survive into this industry, let's say someone is having 10 years of experience, right? And in this COVID, we know that lot many people have lost their job. So if you want to survive into the industry, I would say that you should start learning Python. Okay, and anyone who is on the like towards the end of their career, and even if you want to uh, uh, survive into this industry for another 4 or 5 years, or probably uh, 10 years, then probably I would say that you should start learning. If you're not coming from programming background, I should say that you should start learning programming, any programming language. And I would say that you should start with Python, because if you compare Python, we will see in today's class, we will see that if you are going to write some simple code in Python, it is way easier than writing the code in other programming languages. So let's say if I will compare, let's say when I'm saying Python is simple, easy to learn and understand, and it is an expressive language. So what exactly does it mean? Let's say if I'll be writing this sample code, add two numbers in C. So what is the code? So first of all, you have to write hash include stdio.h. Okay, stdio.h. This is the header file you have included. Then int main. I'm not writing this C code. I'm not going to teach you the C programming, but I just want to give you an idea that what a C program looks like. So int a, comma b, comma c. Okay. Then you will be writing a is equal to 10, b is equal to 20, c is equal to a plus b, and a plus b, and print c. And printer plus a C. Okay, so this is the sample code you are going to write in C just to add two numbers. Anyone who is coming from non-programming background, the very first question they will be asking is, what is this line? Why we have written? So we have to make them understand that, see, this is the header file, and if you want to use these kind of functions, then you have to include this header file. Then you have to give the explanation what exactly the header file. Then why we have written int main, why this bracket is required, what is this semicolon, why we are writing this int, why we are writing printf, why can't we write print, right? So there are a lot of questions. Similarly, if you use the other programming languages, this is called the syntax of the programming language. The syntax of the programming languages should not be complex for a beginner, isn't it? If it is going to be complex in the beginning itself, then probably beginner will lose all its interest to learn that programming language. Now, if you want to write this same code to add two numbers in Python, then what that code will look like? Simple. You want to add two numbers, take two numbers, add them, and print the result. Even the keywords you are using, they are taken directly from the English. Okay, they looks like they are having resemblance to the English letters and words, right? So basically, if you'll see this here, you are getting the output. For this, I'll not get any output because this is the error. I'll comment this out. If I'm executing this code, I'm getting the output in Python. Now, I'm pretty sure that whether you are coming from programming background or not does not matter. If I will give this code to anyone who is coming from non-programming background, he or she will be easily able to understand this code. Right? So at least you are able to understand that we are taking a number 10, we are assigning to a variable A. We are taking a number 20, we are assigning to variable B. We are adding that number and then we are assigning to variable C, and then we are printing that result. Right? So this is the sample code in Python. And I can say that, yes, you are able to understand it, probably. Right? So this is one of the example. Hello, guys, am I audible? Hello. Okay. Recordings will be uploaded, guys. Regarding Jupyter Notebook, how to use the Jupyter, probably we will take another webinar session and we will tell you that where and how you can use Jupyter. But those who are not having the Jupyter Notebook, I would recommend that you can use any editor. You just learn the concept, you can use any editor. In the meantime, you guys can go to anaconda.com, okay, and click on products individual edition. It will ask you to download the Anaconda based on your operating system. download this, okay, and just go for the default installation. Click on next, click on install. It will be, you will be able to install it on your system. Once the installation is completed, then you can look for the Anaconda Navigator. You can look for the Anaconda Navigator. This is the Anaconda Navigator. Into the search bar or into the launch pad. You can start the Anaconda Navigator, and here you have the Jupyter Notebook. Click on launch, it will be launching the Jupyter Notebook in your default browser. So this is the step how you can launch the Jupyter Notebook quite easy, and then you can start writing the code very easy. Okay. So I hope this first point is clear, that why we are selecting Python, why we code in Python. It is quite simple, easy to learn and understand, and it is an expressive language. Expressive means you have to write very few lines of code. You don't have to write, you don't have to focus on unnecessary things, right? You just want to add two numbers, take two numbers, add them and print the result. That's it. So you have to focus more on the logic compared to the syntax. Okay, so it is quite easy. Now, the second feature we have of the Python is a general purpose programming language. When we say Python is a general purpose programming language, what do you mean by this? When we say Python is a general purpose programming language, it means we can use Python for any job. Okay, any task you want to do. You want to develop the application, you can use Python. What kind of application you want to develop? You want to develop web application. You want to develop desktop application. You want to develop any kind of application, database application, anything you can use for you can use Python for that, right? So any kind of application development, you can use Python. Then it can be used in the field of machine learning and AI. Okay, it can be used in the field of game development. Okay, it can be used in the field of automation and testing. Okay, so whatever field you name, almost in every field you can use Python. That's why we say Python is a general purpose programming language. So let's say today you are working as a game developer, but in future you might have decided to work as a full stack developer. You don't have to learn a different programming language. Probably some learning framework will do your task, but the core backend programming will remain same, Python, right? Correct. So it is good thing, right? It's not like for web application development you are learning language A, and for game development you are learning language B. Okay, so almost everything you can do in using the Python, right? Next, third point we have is Python is free. Python is free and open source. What do you mean by free and open source? So free means basically, when we say free, it means no need to purchase the license. So license is not required. Okay, and open source means what? Open source means the source code is available freely. Source code is available freely. Okay, so this is the Python. Like Python is free. For example, let's say you can go to the official website of Python. Python.org is the official website of Python. Click on downloads, okay, and then click on this link, Python 3.10.0. This will download the Python for your platform, and you can use it. Like you can write the code into that. You can execute the Python code into that, right? And so that's why we say Python is free. So one more example of free. Let's say if you are going to use Python, did you pay anything? When I'm using Jupyter Notebook, when you're installing Anaconda, or if you're downloading and installing Python from here, are you paying something? No, it is free. But if you want to use the Windows 10 licensed one, you no need to pay for that, right? Sorry, you need to pay for that for Windows 10. Okay, I'm not talking the pirated one, but yes, the original one or the genuine one. If you want to use genuine Python, you need to pay for that. So it is licensed version, and it is not available freely. So Windows is not free. Similarly, Java Enterprise Edition, it is not free. And when you talk about the open source, so open source means source code is available freely. So if you have this downloads, and if you click on source code, let's say on this download, if you click on source code, you can get the source code available on Python. So you can see here, you just download this link, you go to this link and download the file. You will be getting the source code at free of cost. You don't have to purchase the source code, or it is available freely on the internet. You can just go here, Python source code on GitHub. Click on this link. See, this is the code of C Python, right? You can get the source code freely, but can you get the source code of Windows? No. Can you get the source code of Java? No. Correct? They are not open source. Okay. So open source means if you can get the source code written for that language at free of cost, then that particular programming language is called the open source. Free means if license is not required, then we say, means if you're going to pay nothing, not a single penny for that, we say it is free. Next, what we have, Python is portable and platform independent. Okay, when we say portable and platform independent, what do you mean by this? Remember, when you talk about the portability, source code. When you talk about the platform independent, we talk about the bytecode. Bytecode means bytecode or intermediate code. Okay, so these all are the two different terms. Portable and platform independent are two different things. Portable means if you can run the source code developed on one platform, from one platform to another platform, we say that particular programming language is portable. Source code, you can run anywhere. Platform independent, bytecode or the intermediate code, if you can run anywhere, then we say it is platform independent. So in the case of portable, a programming language is called portable if source code can run on any platform. Okay, and platform independent, we say it is platform independent when the intermediate code, okay, intermediate code can run on any platform. So intermediate code is what? Intermediate code, a code which gets generated after compiling the source code. Okay, so this intermediate code, so there are three types of code. One is source code. Source code is what? The code which we write. That is called the source code. Then we have intermediate code. The intermediate code have different name in different programming languages. In C, it is called executable code. You might have seen .exe files, correct? Then in Java, we say it is the object code. Okay, for example, .java C file. Okay, and in Python we say that is the bytecode. Okay, bytecode is .pyc files. Okay, .pyc files. So these all are the different intermediate codes we are having in different programming languages, correct? And if you can move this or you can run this intermediate code on different platform, we say they are that programming language is platform independent. So can anyone tell me C is a platform independent? C is platform independent? No, C is not platform independent. But Java and Python are platform independent. Java and Python, are they platform independent? Yes, Java and Python are platform independent because this intermediate code does not interact with the hardware component directly. It interact with the, whereas in case of C, it interact with the hardware component directly of your computer. So this code is running directly on the hardware. It is compiled based on your operating system, based on your hardware, whatever you are having on your system. They are not. They are compiled based on the Java compiler or based on the Python compiler. Okay, so they can run on this Java compiled code or object code can run on JVM. Okay, and this will run on PVM. So it is not running on your hardware, it is running on a virtual machine. Install a virtual machine on your computer and then you will be able to run any bytecode. Does not matter whether it is generated on Windows or Mac or Linux or any other operating system or any other platform. Okay, so this is the intermediate code. Fine. Now, how a Python program runs on our system? So we need to understand, let's say if I'll talk about the execution sequence of a Python program. Execution sequence of a Python program. So how it runs? So first of all, you have a, let's say you write the source code, right? Then you will be having a compiler, correct? Then you will be having one interpreter, sorry, bytecode. This compiler will generate the intermediate code that is called the bytecode. Then you will be having one PVM that will have the interpreter. And finally, you are going to have the output. So this is the execution sequence of the Python program. Right? This is called the source code. Okay. This is called the bytecode. And this is the, let's say we are getting the output directly here. Okay. This is compiler. This is interpreter. And we have the PVM here. Okay. Now this file name is, let's say, abc.py. This file name is abc.pyc. Okay. And we have the output. Now, if you look into these different stages, so we have the compiler and interpreter both in this Python program, right? First of all, we are writing the code. So what I said, source code. Source code means the code which you are writing, that is called the source code. Simple, right? So the code which we are writing, that is called the source code. So how does this compiler work? See, this compiler and interpreter are the translator. They are used to translate the code from one form to another. The difference between compiler and interpreter is compiler always generates one intermediate code. Interpreter does not generate any intermediate code, it directly executes the code. So you will be having okay. So you will be, let's say this is the source code, you have written some code. So what compiler does, this compiler will take this whole code at once. Okay, it will compile and it will generate the bytecode. Whereas this interpreter will take this code line by line. It will execute the one line of code at a time and then executes the code line by line, right? It will take third line, then it will execute, gives you the output, then it will take fourth line, execute and gives you the output, and so on. So compiler takes the whole code at once and compiles to the intermediate code. In case of Python, this intermediate code is called the bytecode. Interpreter takes the code line by line, it executes it and gives you the output. Okay, so interpreter is a line by line execution. And one more difference, if you want to see, so compiler always generates some intermediate code. That's, let's say here it is generating bytecode. Interpreter does not generate any intermediate code, right? And one more difference between compiler and interpreter is, let's say if this line is incorrect, this line is having some problem, some error in this particular line of code, compiler will not compile the code. Bytecode itself will not be generated. This will not be generated at all. But interpreter, let's say if you have some error at this particular line of code, so it will stop the execution here itself. It will not execute the further code, but the code prior to this line will be executed. So at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at least you will be getting the output for 5 lines in the interpreter. Okay. Whereas in the compiler, if the error is though at the end of the code, but the rest of the code will not be compiled at all. Okay. So for compiler to work, you need the error-free code. Okay. And for interpreter, you can execute the code line by line. Okay, so this is the difference between compiler and interpreter. But still we say Python is an interpreted programming language. But still we say Python is an interpreted programming language. Why don't we say Python is a compiled language? Why don't we say Python is a compiled language? So remember, you need to identify in every programming language, there is a task of memory allocation and type checking. Okay, that is how I identify whether a programming language is compiled or interpreted. Memory allocation and type checking. Okay, so if this task is done by the compiler, if memory allocation and type checking is done by the compiler, we say that language is compiled language. Okay, if it is done by the compiler, then we say that language is the compiled language. Okay, and if the same task is done by the interpreter, then we say that language is interpreted language. We say that language is interpreted language, right? If it is done by the interpreter. So in Python, see, Python is a runtime. Python is called the runtime language. Why we say runtime language? See, if you have written a code, okay, so let's say I have here a is equal to 10, b is equal to 20, c is equal to a plus b, and print c, some code we have written. Okay, so let's say this is the code. Let's say this is the code we have written. Okay, fine. Now, when you will compile this code, so what it will do, first it will compile this whole code at once, and then it will generate the bytecode. So what this bytecode will look like? So this bytecode first will load the value 10, and then it will assign to A. Then it will load the value 20, then it will assign to B. Assign to B. Then it will load 30. Load 30, and not 30 actually. First it will load the value of A, then it will load the value of B, then it will do the binary addition. This is the binary code basically I'm writing, and then it will assign to C. The result it will assign to C. Okay, and then it will print the C, value of C, print C. Okay, so this is the kind of binary code it looks like. You know, not exactly, but yes, there will be little bit of changes into the binary code when you will be looking in. So what I have done, this is a statement, and I have converted this into the binary instruction. First, we are loading 10. In Python, it is the task of the compiler to identify the object and then identify this operation, what kind of operation you are taking. So first object is loaded into the memory, and then the assignment is done. So why we are loading the object first? Because we have when interpreter will execute this code load 10, so this PVM will identify that what kind of object it is. Based on that, it will do the memory allocation. So your memory allocation is done over here, correct? And how much memory has to be allocated based on the object. So if it is an integer object, then some memory will be allocated according to the integer object definition in Python, right? So type checking and memory allocation both is done by the interpreter in Python. That's why we say it is the interpreted language. Clear, everyone? Is that clear? Any question? Right. So if now someone says that why we say interpreted language, why can't we say compiled language? See, compiler is there, but remember we don't say compile, we say it is the interpreted language because this task is done by the interpreter. Okay, so remember this concept. Okay, so I hope you guys have understood this concept. Python is portable and platform independent, and the fifth one, Python is interpreted programming language. Okay, then next feature we have Python. Python has huge library support. Okay, almost every task you want to do in Python. Okay, almost every task you want to do in Python, actually you don't have to write the code from scratch. This is the one of the biggest advantage of Python. You want to do the data analysis, you want to develop the DL application, AI application, ML application, code is already written in Python. You don't have to write the code from scratch. You want to do mathematical calculation, you just use some import math module and you will be able to do the operation. Quite simple. You don't have to write the code from scratch. See, in Python, if you might have written the code for finding the HCF and LCF, right? In the math, in the Python, you have math module. You can see the dir of math, and you have the functions to find the HCF and LCM. See GCD. And what is that? GCD and one more thing. LCM, FGHIGKLL. Where is L? No, I think it is, name is different. SCF is GCD. Anyway, so whatever is the mathematical name, you can find that it is available. Okay, GCD. Okay, GCD is SCL, LCM, right? GH. I don't think so. GCD is SCF, I hope. Anyway, so basically we can find almost all the function, right? Greatest common denominator. Okay. See, mathematics and all you can find. I don't want the definition and all those things for that, but you can find that, right? LCM, SCF, you don't have that LCM function. Huh? Then log L gamma LXP is a square. You don't have that. So you can find probably by combining the multiple functions together. Okay. Now STD is a different thing, I think. STD is not that one. And we don't have STD here. Anyway, so basically we have the functions, built-in functions for that. Let's say if you want to find the permutation or combination of different numbers, correct? So you can use these functions, factorial of a different number, floor value, f mod, or let's say you want to find the exponent. So basically we have almost all the functions, and math is one of the example of that. One of the example, you have random module, you have date time module, you have calendar module, you have sys module, OS module, you have NumPy, Panda, Matplotlib, Seaborn for data analysis. Okay, you have Django package and Flask package for developing the web applications, right? So you don't have to write the code from scratch. That's what I want to convey here. That's it. The thing is, probably you can name different modules. We are not going into the modules which we are having. So the mainly thing is what we have the huge library support for we've used library support in Python. So any task you want to do, you don't have to write the code from scratch. You just can do one thing. Just you need to know about that library. Nowadays we use Google. Go ahead, Google it, whether it is available or not. If it is available, then in which module it is available. Then we go ahead and able to use that. Okay. What is that question? What other type? What other type? Other? I don't understand your question. Kamlakar. Other than math function, what other type? Other than math function in Python, plotting. Math is not a function. Math is a module. Okay. No. We don't have physics and we don't have chemistry and all that. What are the quality to achieve data scientist? That is a different question, not related to the topic. Sorry. Okay, so we will be taking up this kind of questions tomorrow in tomorrow's class. Okay. Python has used library support. Next feature of the Python is dynamically typed programming language. Okay. Python is dynamically typed programming language. When we say Python is dynamically typed programming language, what do you mean by this? So when we say Python is dynamically typed programming language, actually, so whenever you are going to execute the Python code or write the Python code, you will see we are not specifying the data type here. Okay, we are not specifying any data type, whereas in Python, in C, C++, Java, you have to specify the data type. Why? Because in these programming languages, before execution, your compiler will check what kind of data type it is. Based on that, it will do the memory allocation and type checking. But in Python, first the object is loaded and it is the task of Pvm to check what kind of object it is. Accordingly, it will allocate the memory and then it will do the type checking. Correct? So we don't need to specify the data in Python at all. That's why we say Python is dynamically typed programming language. Dynamic means, so let's say if you have written a is equal to 10, in the next line, if you will write here a is equal to 10.20, no problem. Now this a, if you check a comma type of a, And if you check a comma type of a here, it will give you the output. Here it will give you int, and here it will give you float. So it is dynamic. No, based on the value, it is deciding that what type it is. Correct. So here the type was integer, so it is giving you integer, but here it is float, so it is giving you float. We don't need to specify the data type. I told you, I have shown you the example, and here what I told you that first this object is loaded into the memory. When this object is loaded into the memory, so it will be decided by the PVM that what kind of object it is, and based on that object, memory allocation will be done. Whereas in the other programming languages, you have to specify the data type, because you have to tell the compiler that how much memory we have to allocate based on that data type. Okay. Clear? Fine, everyone. Any question? Okay, so okay, so now I hope you have these all are few of the I will say the advantages which we have of Python over other programming languages, right? And there are many more. Okay, I don't want to keep on discussing only the advantages. Now I hope you guys might have understood that why we are giving so much preference to Python. See, if you have to develop any application, you don't need to learn other programming languages. You'll be able to do everything in Python. So learn one programming language in future. Let's say if you are a beginner, let's say you have 1 year or 2 year of experience. Okay, you will learn Python now. Probably after 5 years or 6 years, you want to move your domain. Let's say right now you are working as a data analyst, but after 5 years you want to build your own organization, your own company. Probably you need the web development, web application developer. So you can do it on your own using Python, and it will be easy. Okay, so these all are the advantages. Okay, it is free, it is open source. You don't have to look here and there. You don't have to invest a lot when you are going to start a new business. Okay, so there are a lot of other advantages of it. So probably we have discussed almost most important features of the Python. Now I will be coming to the Python fundamentals. Okay, so I will tell you that how the memory allocation is done in Python. That is one of the important topic, and also after that I'll be coming to the other Python components in Python components. Okay, so memory allocation in Python, how it is done. So see, probably I hope you all guys knows that what is the first application. So where exactly all the application runs in our computer, where our application runs. Where exactly our application runs? Any idea? So it is RAM. Okay. In RAM, on our computer, in RAM, all the application runs into the RAM. Okay. Correct. Whatever application you are running, your RAM is involved in it. Your application will be loaded into the RAM. And can anyone tell me what is the first application which gets loaded into the RAM? Not now. I will share the attendance. Oh yes, correct. So operating system is the first application which gets loaded into the RAM. On top of that, you will be having other application. Let's say you are running Word, you are running Paint. Okay. And you might be having some Python application f1.py and f2.py. Okay. Remember, this is called the process. Each application which is running and some amount of memory is allocated to them. This is called the process. This is one process. This is second process. This is third process. This is fourth process, and so on. They are not going to interfere in the memory area of each other's process. They all are independent. If you have some 10, a is equal to 10 assigned here, and a is equal to 10 assigned here, so this a equal to 10 and this a equal to 10 for f1 and f2, it is different. Both are not same. Okay, They are completely different. Now, if you'll see this small memory segment, so this is divided into different areas. Okay, so for f1.py, for f2.py, whatever Python application you are going to run, this small segment will be divided into some 4 different area. Those 4 different area are called the first one is the code area. Then we have the variable area. Then we have the heap area. Then we have the stack area and free area. These all are the different area which gets created. First one, what we have code area. Then we have variable area. Then we have heap area. Then we have free area. And then we have stack area. Okay. Now this small memory segment, so f1.py, this small memory segment into 4 different areas in Python. So what a Python program looks like, so let's say we have a is equal to 10, b is equal to 20, c is equal to a plus b, and print c. Okay, fine. And if I'll be executing this, so how this program runs on our system? So let's say I have f1.py, correct? So this f1.py is this code. When you will execute this code, so I have shown you the bytecode also. I have shown you the bytecode. So first of all, load 10, then assign to A. Okay, then load 20, then assign to B. Correct. Then load A, then load B, then load binary add operation. Okay, and then we will be having print. Okay, print C. Okay, this is a function call. Correct. So this is the bytecode. Correct. So actually, when you are executing the source code, so this source code is converted into this bytecode. This bytecode will be loaded into the code area. Okay, this bytecode will be loaded into the code area. Once this bytecode is created, so it is not going to change, right? So remember, code area is also fixed in size. Okay, code area is also fixed in size. It is not going to change because this bytecode is not going to change. No. Once your application started running, you cannot change your code, bytecode. So this bytecode will be loaded here. Your PVM, your CPU will run the bytecode instruction from here. It will execute the code and it will give you the output. Okay, so this is the bytecode. It will be loaded into the code area. Next, we have variable and heap area. Very important. Free area is free. We have stack area. So as soon as you start running this Python application, in this stack area, you will be having one small memory segment allocated for the main. Okay, main is what? So it is the place where your Python program will be running. Okay, and this main will be here until and unless your program execution is completed. Once your program execution is completed, this main will be removed from the stack area. Okay, so when main is there into the stack area, it means your program is running. If main is not there in the stack area, it means your program is not running right now. So once main will be kicked in into this stack area, then you will start executing the code line by line. First, this code will be executed. So it will load 10. Remember this 10, 20, 30, 10 plus 10.20, 10.30 string, they all are the object. Object are always stored into the heap area. Okay. Object are always stored into the heap area. So this 10 is the object where this will be saved. This object will be saved into the heap area. Let's say 10 is the object and it is saved into the heap area. And the memory address is 101 for that. Okay. So 10 is stored into the heap area. Memory address is 101. So now assign to A. So A will be pointing to 101 into the variable area. So in the variable area, whatever variables you will be having, that will be saved. And in the heap area, whatever objects will be having in your program, that will be saved. So next you have 20. So 20 will be loaded into the heap area. 20 is loaded. Let's say the memory address is 102. Okay. So now B will be pointing to 102. Let's say B is pointing to 102. Okay. Next you have load A, load B. So it will be loading the value of A and B, and then it will do the binary add operation. So the new value that gets created is what? 30. So 30 will be created into the heap area. The memory address is, let's say, 103, and then C will be pointing to memory address 103. 103, right? Then it will be printing C. So print C will be printing the value 30 on the output screen. So this is how this code runs, right? One by one. So you can check this code, how it runs actually into the Thorny editor. Okay, I'll show you once. But yeah, so if you were writing any complex code, use that editor and it will give you the basic understanding of any Python program. Okay, so you can execute that code there. Now, what is this free area? So let's say if your heap area is exhausted, you have large application and your heap area is exhausted. So it will start using the free area from this. Okay, clear? Fine, everyone. Any question? So let me show you the Thorny editor, right? So this is Thorny editor. Now, if I'll do this operation, C is equal to A plus B, and print C. So you can see this code, right? Variable area, heap area, and I will invoke the stack area also. So you can see this stack area. It is automatic. It is automatic. Kamlakar. Okay, it is automatic. So I'm going to execute this code. So I'll be executing this code line by line. So I'm going to debug this code. So first of all, we are executing this line of code, right? So you'll see that module f1.py, this is pushed into this module f1.py is pushed into the stack area. Wherever you will see this yellow box, it means we are going to execute that particular part. So as of now, we are going to execute first line, but in the first line, what I said, first right hand side part will be executed. So step into this process, what you will find here, that 10 will be loaded into the heap area, right? First 10 is loaded into the heap area. Memory address is BBC0. Then A will be pointing to variable area. So A is pointing to this memory address in the variable area. So in the heap area, object is stored, and in the variable area, this A variable is pointing to this memory address. Then let's store this 20. 20 is created into the heap area again. The ID is 8BD00, and B will be pointing to this memory address. Correct? Then C is equal to A plus B. So A is, what is the memory address of A? It is this. So it is loading memory address of A. Then it is loading the memory address of B. Then it is adding the value at these two addresses. The result is 30, which is created ID is 8BE40. So C is going to point to this memory address. Okay. Then print C. So when you will print C, so it will fetch the address of C, BE40. It will print the value at this address, and finally execution is completed. Okay. Clear? Fine, everyone. Any question? So you can use this Thorny editor to run any Python application, and you can do this. You can run this line by line, and you can see what exactly the steps are involved in running any Python application. Okay. Fine, guys. So this is about the Python, the memory allocation, how it is done in Python. I hope you guys have understood this. You guys can practice more and more question, more and more program using Thorny editor. You will be able to understand it. Okay. Same. Free area is free basically. So it will be used when your heap area is exhausted. If you don't have enough space into the heap area, because this allocation happens internally by the OS, right? How much free area will be allocated, how much the different code area will be allocated, right? So this happens randomly, correct? So that will be decided by the OS. But later on, if your application requires more memory, then it will be taking from the free area. Okay. Not Tommy editor, it is Thorny editor. thonny.org. Okay, from here you can download it. Any question? Okay. Okay, so now next what we have, so we have understood the memory management in Python. So next what we have, Python components. Okay, what are Python components we are having? So see, in a Python program, there are, yes, you will be able to access this recorded class later. So in a Python program, there are different components in a Python program. For example, let's say there are literals. Okay, there are identifiers, correct? Identifiers, correct? There are constant variables, there are reserved words. Okay, reserved words. Then then we have expressions and statements, right? Then we have blocks and indentation, comments, etc. Okay, we have the different types of component in Python, right? There are many other components, operators, data types, they all are the component. So basically, so every program, whenever you are going to write any Python program, so you will find that either few of them or almost all of them are available into it, in that program. So what, like if we are going to discuss this, so we are not discussing it, to that, you'll be getting some questions and all in the interviews, right? So basically we are learning this to identify, let's say if you are a beginner, so you should be able to identify that what component it is in the Python program, right? Once you'll be able to identify it, then it will give you more confidence that what exactly the component is, and then based on that you'll be able to take the decisions, right? So whenever you will be looking at any Python code, make sure that you are able to identify the different components of that Python program. What is literal? Literal is basically any value. Any value in Python program is called the literal. Okay. For example, so 10, 10.20, minus 10, 0, minus 10.20, 10 plus 20j, 10 plus 20j, or a string, or a list, okay, or a tuple, anything, any value which you take, that is called any value which you take in the Python program is called the literal. Basically, this list and tuples are not considered as a literal. None. Boolean value, true, false, and all. They are considered as a literal. Identifiers, any name. Any name in the Python program is considered as an identifier. Constant and variables. Constant and variables are also a type of identifier. Basically, let's say if you are using a constant value in your Python program, pi. What is the value of pi? 3.14. It is a constant value. Is it going to change? No. So if you are using any value which is not going to change in your Python program throughout the application, we say it is a constant. Okay. And variable. So the value, when it is changing, we say it is the variable. So we use a name to store that constant value. That name is called the constant. And similarly, we use some name to store that value which may vary. So we say that is a variable. Okay. Then we have reserved words. Reserved words. So there are list of reserved words in the Python, like for example, if, elif, else, for, while, okay, or you can say try, except, else finally with, okay, then what else we have? With def class, etc. There are many keywords. There are around 35 keywords available in Python. No need to memorize all of them. We'll be learning about them. Okay, learning in the real time will give you the better understanding. So what exactly it is used for and when it is used. Correct. So we have the reserved words. They are also called the keywords. Okay. So these reserved words are also the Python component. You have to identify those Python components. How you can get the list of reserved words? You just write import keyword dot KW list. Execute, you'll be getting the list of keywords here. Fine. Next, we have expression and statement. Expression will, after execution, it always gives you the result. Okay, gives result. Whereas statement, after execution, it will never give you the result. After execution. Okay. So, for example, let's say if I'm writing 10, it is an expression. When you execute it, it will give you the output. Okay. If you write 10 plus 20, when you execute it, it will give you the output 30. When you write Python, loop will cover tomorrow, not today. Python plus class. Right? So this is also expression. In fact, you can write the expression in the print function, right? You can write the expression in the print function and it will give you the output. Correct. So anything which is written inside the print function, upon execution, it gives the output. It means it is a expression. And statement will never give you the output. A is equal to 10. It is a statement, assignment statement. It will not give you the output. Try to write it inside the print function. It will give you the error. It is a statement. Correct. Similarly, we have if statement. If 10 less than 20, colon pass. Execute does not give any output. You will try to keep it inside the print function. It gives the error. It is a statement. You cannot write a statement inside the print function. You cannot print that. Okay. So remember, expression and statement. Expression upon evaluation will always give you the result. A statement will never give you the result. Blocks and indentation. Indentation are used to create the block. Indentation are used to create the block. Okay. Why we need the block? So we need the block to tell the Python interpreter that what piece of code you want to execute if a for loop is executed, if a condition is executed, or if a function is called. Correct. So you create a block. For example, let's say if let's say I'm taking number 1 is equal to 10 and number 2 you can write, let's say 100. So I'm writing here if number 1 is greater than number 2, then I will be writing num1, num2, and then I'll be printing num1 minus num2. Okay. Otherwise, if this is not the case, then I'll be printing num2 and num2 minus num1. Correct. Execute this. So num1 is greater than num2. This condition is false, right? So if this condition is false, so you want these 3 pieces of code to be if this condition is true, then you want these 3 lines of code to be executed. So you have written the indented block of code here, right? You have provided the indentation and you have created the block. So how Python understand that if this code is executed, then only these 3 lines of code will be executed. Why not only this? Why not only this? Why? Because you have written all this code at the same indentation level. The code which are coming at the same indentation level come under one block of code. And if the previous condition is satisfied, then it will be executing these all 3 lines of code. If it is not satisfied, then it will be executing these lines of code. Because again, they are at the same indentation level. So executing this, it will give you this output. Okay. Clear, everyone? So we use the indentation to create the block. Okay. Next, what we have? Next, we have comments. So we comment we use the comments to, let's say, if you have some unnecessary piece of code, shift enter. Shift enter. Okay. If you have some unnecessary piece of code in your editor, so probably you may need to avoid that, right? You don't want to execute that. Let's say if I try to execute this code, a is equal to 10, b is equal to 20, right? So this is, there are some unnecessary piece of code into this. What? These lines are unnecessary. They are not the code. I have to avoid that. If I try to execute, it will give me the error. Why? Because they are not the code. They are not the Python code. So you have to comment them. How you can comment them? You can select, you can press command / or control / it will be commented. So comments are never considered as a Python code. If you write a single hash before inline, it will be considered as a comment. Correct? Clear, everyone? So you can use the comment to avoid the unnecessary piece of code in Python. Okay, any question? Okay, fine. So we have seen the Python programming components, right? And now let's come to the Python data types. Okay, so in the Python data types, we have the different data types. So first of all, we have integers, then we have float, then we have complex, then we have string, then we have Boolean, then we have list, tuple, set, dictionary, range. Okay. Control / command /, just select it, control / or command / control / or command control / to comment and uncomment. Okay, you can use control / directly. Fine. Range, then we have frozen set, then we have bytes, then we have byte array. Right? These are the different data types we are having in Python. Okay. Now in this, we know, let's discuss about the integers. So integers, the numbers without the decimal point, okay, are called the integers. For example, 10, 0, or -10. They all are the integer because they are not having decimal point in it. Okay. Class are not be considered as a data type as of now. Class is the user-defined class we are going to define. Functions are not the data types. Okay. They are the type of object, you can say. They are not the data type. Okay. Fine. So we have integers. Integers, numbers without the decimal point, they are called the integers. Okay. So for example, let's say if you will talk about, if you want to check the type of a which class it belongs to, so you can assign a value. You can write a comma type of a, and then it will be giving you that it belongs to integer class. So it is an integer kind of object. Okay, you can take any number, it will give you that it is an integer object. Okay, now you can perform the different operations on this. You can perform arithmetic operation, you can perform comparison operation, you can perform equality operation, you can perform many operations. Operators will be looking into it probably in tomorrow's class. Let's finish few of the data type and then we will be coming to the operators and loops. Okay, now if you will take a number with a decimal point, that number will become the float. So for example, let's say if you talk about the float value, so in the float, numbers with the decimal point, numbers with the decimal point are called the float. For example, a is equal to 10.90. So if you will check a comma type of a, this will give you that it is a float type. So it belongs to float class. Okay, it is a floating point number. So number with the decimal point, you are going to take it as a floating point value. So if you want to represent, let's say if you want to represent someone's salary may be in the float value 10,000.99, correct? someone's age, maybe in the float, maybe in the integer. Let's say building name will always be the integer, right? Pin code will always be the integer, right? So you can take the integer values to represent this kind of data. And if you have salary or age, which is in the, which can be only in the floating type, so you will be taking the, you will be storing it into the, like you will be storing it as a float data type. Okay. Yes, in the negative also it come as a float. Okay. Any question? Okay, so next, current line, you just select it, comment it, that's it, simple. Okay, so we have seen integer, float. Let's come to the complex. So complex number, so any number which is in the form of a plus bj are called the complex number, where a is real, b is imaginary value. Okay, pasting a code, no, that is a different thing. Arif. So that is also, you can say, if you are able to run the code written from one system to another system, that is also, you can say, you are porting that code, right? So it is portable. That is same thing actually. Correct. Portability means you write on one platform and can run on any other. So that is either you remove the whole file or you just copy and paste the code in other place. Okay, that will also come as a portable. Okay, so a is real, b is imaginary value. So let's say if you write a is equal to 10 plus 20j. So here, if you want to get the real part, you just write a dot real, and if you want to get the imaginary part, just write a dot imaginary. You'll be getting the real and imaginary part of the complex number 10 and 20. Okay, fine. Clear, everyone? Now, this complex number are used for some mathematical operations. Will not be using in our day-to-day life or even in our day-to-day programming. But anyhow, this support is available in Python, so you should just know about it. We have seen the complex number and we have seen the type of it. So let's say if you have this complex number, and if you'll be checking the type of a, print a comma type of it, it will give you the complex type. Okay, so as I said, we will not be using it quite regularly. It is mainly used for some mathematical operations. Okay, so this is the complex type. Okay, next what we have, Boolean type. So Boolean, in this Boolean, we have only two values. One is true and one is false. Let's say if you write a is equal to 2, print a comma type of a, this is going to give you that it is a Boolean type. Okay, so this belongs to the Boolean type. In Boolean, you have only two values. Remember, true and false. True is always equal to 1 and false is always equal to 0. So if I write true, it is always equal to 1 and false is always equal to 0. Okay, why I should say? So for example, if you will multiply 20 into true, it will be giving you 20 only. So when we multiply a number with another number, so when we get the same number, when we multiply that number by 1, and if you'll be writing 20 into false, then you'll be getting 0 in the second case, right? So false is always considered as 0. So when you'll be multiplying any number with 0, then you'll be getting 0. So here false is 0 only, right? Fine. So this is about the Boolean data type. Next, we have the string data type. Okay. So string data type is any data type which is kept inside the either single quotation or double quotation, or kept in triple quotation made up of single quote, or kept in triple quotation made up of double quote. Okay, that is called this. For example, a is equal to Python, print a comma type of a. Okay, then we have a is equal to Python. If I will be writing print a comma type of a, that is also called the, that is also the string. A is equal to Python. So print a comma type of a, that is also a string value, right? A is equal to Python. Okay, so print a comma type of a. Execute this, these all are the string data structure. Correct? So does not matter in which quotation you are going to keep the data. If you have kept into the quotation, it will always be the string data structure. Now, what is the use of this single quotation, double quotation, and triple quotation? So see, let's say if you have a string, a is equal to this is Python class, right? Now, if you will print a comma type of a, it is going to give you that it is a string value. But what if you have apostrophe s as a character in this string? So you will be executing this and it gives you that it is the error. Why? Because your PVM reads that your string is starting here, ending here. What about the other part? Correct? So this is again an error, right? So in that case, you will be using the double quotation to define this string. Execute this, you are getting this output. So this single apostrophe is now printed as a apostrophe s. So if you have this single apostrophe as a character in your string, then you should use that, you should define that string into the double quotation. Similarly, let's say if you have a string where you have defined it here, so this is fine. But what if you have double quotation here? So you cannot write this string again into the double quotation. So what you will be doing? You will be writing this into the single quotation. It will give you this. So now this double quotation is printed as a character. So now this double quotation is a character. Let's say if you have single and double quotation both in this string, then what will happen? So let's say this is Python and Java class, right? So if that is the case, so neither you can define this string in the single quotation nor in the double quotation. So you can use triple quotation. So if you have single quotation and double quotation both as a character in this string, then you should use triple quotation. So this is the use of the triple quotation. And you can also use to define the multi-line string. Triple quotation is used to define multi-line string. Okay. For example, A is equal to, if you have multi-line string, for example, let's say this one. This is, going beyond this boundary, right? So let's say if you want to keep it into the same, then you will splitting this line, okay? So let's say this is into 3 lines. So if you will, since this particular string is spanning into 3 lines, so if you will execute this, it will give you the error, because if you have multi-line string, you cannot use single quotation or double quotation for that. So you have to use triple quotation for that, okay? So it means if you have multi-line string, then you should use triple quotation, okay? Now if you will be printing a and type of a, so it will be giving you that it is a string, okay? So now it is not giving the error. So remember, if you have multi-line string, then you should use triple quotation, okay? There is no concept of multi-line string. Actually, if you'll try to comment, okay, then you can select the multiple lines and then you can comment it at once, okay? Or you can, somewhere you will find that strings are used to comment multiple lines. Actually, when you are using strings, so you are not commenting it, you are commenting a triple quoted string object. And since it is not having any assignment operation, so it will be automatically garbage collected after some time. Okay, fine. So this is creating a string object. This is not a comment. Okay, it creates a string object. And since it is a string object and not having any assignment, then it is garbage collected after some time. Okay. So I hope you guys have understood the use of triple quotation. Any question till here? String is clear. Okay. Next we have list data structure. List data structure. See, string is what? So if you have multi-line string, no? If you have multi-line string, then you are going to use triple quotation. The single quotation and see, triple quotation made up of single quotes and double quotes. They are used interchangeably. Okay. Let's say if you have a string here, let's say if it is ending with single quotation, okay, you want to have one single quotation at the end of this string, then you cannot use this triple quotation, single triple quotation. Okay. So you have to keep this into the double quotation. This way you have to define. So you will be having one single quotation at the end. Okay, fine. Okay, collection of all element is a list inside this square bracket, Shiva. Okay, you forgot this square bracket. Okay, so list, you can keep any value kept inside this square bracket. That square bracket is called the list. For example, LST is equal to 10, 20, 30, 40. That is a list object. Okay, you can keep any kind of object. For example, 20.30 you can keep, 30 plus 40j you can keep. Okay, then you can keep a boolean value true. You can keep a string value, let's say Python. Now if you'll be printing LST, comma type of LST, you will see that it is going to be a list type. So you can keep any values, collection of any kind of element inside this square bracket, that is called a list. Similarly, we have tuple. So tuple is what? Again, collection of all any type of element, any value kept inside this small bracket, that is called a tuple. So for example, here if you use small bracket, then it will become a tuple. So what is the difference between list and tuple? So remember, list, we can modify the list. Okay, whereas tuple, we cannot modify the tuple. We cannot modify the tuple. Okay, fine. Okay, okay. Next we have, so list and tuple. Next we have set. What is set? So set is collection of unique element. Okay, set is a collection of unique element. Okay, for example, let's say if you will take A is equal to 10, 20, 30, 40, comma 10, comma 100, comma 20, comma 10. And if you'll try to print A, comma type of A, it is going to give you that it is a set. Okay, but it will remove all the duplicate elements. Clear? It will remove all the duplicate elements, correct? So this 10, this 10, this 10, there are 3 repetitions of the 10, but you have only 1 repetition. Remember, it is not a collection of the duplicate element. It can have only unique element, right? Set can have only the unique element. So if you'll be having the duplicate element, it will automatically remove all the duplicate element and it will keep only the unique element. Number 1. Number 2, it is not a sequence. List and tuple are the sequence. Okay, list and tuple are the sequence, but set is not a sequence. Sequence means to say they are the indexed value. You can access these values by the index, but you can access the value by the index from the list and tuple and string. But in this set, it is a mapping data structure. It is not a sequence. You cannot perform the indexing operation here. Okay. Next, we have dictionary. So dictionary is a collection of key value pair. Collection of key value pair. Now, let's say if you will be writing here, D is equal to 1 colon 100, 2 colon 200, 3 colon 300. So this each pair is called a item or element. Okay. So one key value pair, key and value are separated by colon. One key value pair is called item or element. Okay. Fine. One key value pair is called item or element. And key should always be immutable type. Okay, where values can be anything. Correct? Fine. Now, key cannot be immutable type. Key cannot be mutable type. Not immutable type, mutable type. Key cannot be mutable type. Mutable means modification. Modification is possible. Immutable means
modification is not possible. Okay, so list is mutable, modification is possible in the list. Set is mutable, modification is possible in the list. Dictionary is mutable, but key you are taking in that, it should be immutable. Okay, key cannot be mutable type. So if you'll see this 1, 2, 3, these all are keys. So if you will be writing D, comma type of D, it is going to give you that it is a dictionary type. Okay, now if you want to access the element from this, you can write D of 1, and it will be giving you the keys a value associated with this key. Correct? Fine. What is not clear? Which example? How to modify the value in the key? You can simply write D of 1 is equal to, let's say, 111. Now print D, you'll get to see that it is modified. Okay, D of 1. So if you want to access the value, you'll be writing this way. Correct? Fine. So dictionary is the collection of key value pair. It is used to store the structured data. Okay, for example, let's say you have a table. Okay, in that table, one column is the employee ID. Employee ID cannot be duplicated, right? Let's say you have the data where you are storing the employee information working in an organization. So employee ID for each employee will be unique. So you are taking employee ID as the key, and then you'll be taking their name as the value. So you are mapping the keys, employee ID with the values. Correct? So in that case, you'll be getting a dictionary. Correct? And keys will be the employee ID and value will be the employee name. Okay. Now after that, let's say if you want to check what is the type, you can use type function. If you want to access the information about a particular employee, you have to write the dictionary name, and in the square bracket you have to write the key. This gives you the value associated with that key. If you want to update the dictionary, then you can use this. Okay. After defining if the key, let's say if you have D, you want to add key 5, you can write here 555. Print D, you will see that this key value pair is added. Okay. Fine. Where is type printed? Type of D is giving you class dict. Okay. Clear, everyone? Any questions? So this is in the data type dictionary. Rest all we will be discussing tomorrow, and we'll be starting with the loop, guys. So that's it for today.